Hey, what's going on, guys? Kalamazi here, and earlier this afternoon, right before raid testing, about half an hour before it even started, Blizzard pushed a handful of buffs to Warlock. Demonology got a few buffs, Destruction got a lot of big buffs, so tonight I want to talk about those buffs, what it means for the spec, how they're performing in raid testing, in Mythic Plus, and I guess just basically go from there. Now, I've got a handful of videos slated over the next 4 or 5 days or so, pre-patch guides. This video, obviously, some raid testing, some Mythic Plus stuff from beta, but I do want to get next week at some point, like Wednesday, Thursday, maybe after the next beta build, a video out comparing like Destro, Demo, and F single target. Now, there's a handful of different builds you can play for each spec, but a reason I wanted to wait was maybe some Destro buffs came in, which they did, and they're still tuning Tyrant damage with Reign of Tyranny, just baseline Demon Fire things, and Destro damage as a whole, with Dogs being nerfed, Fellstorm being nerfed, and also the fact that Demonic Strength and Fellstorm itself are still bugged. So within the next week or so, I should have a video out comparing all those, but today we're going to focus on the Destro buffs and the Demo buffs. Now, two things we get in the video. Number one, big shout out to my patrons once again. Thank you guys for all support a million times on Patreon. Really appreciate it. If you're looking at supporting on Patreon, should be a link up here as well as down below. And number two, the Central Weak War that you guys might see in this video during testing and things is indeed available for free on my Wago. It's been up for a little while. It should indeed work in pre-patch for everyone asking about it. If you want the link, just hop on my Discord. There's a link down below in the video description, or put !WA in Twitch chat. It will pull up the link for you, and then just sort by date. So, with that being said, let's jump into the video, starting off with the buffs and discussing how it changes each spec. Alrighty, so getting into the Demonology changes here briefly, there was one. It is to Reign of Tyranny. Active Wild Imps grant 1 stack of Demonic Servitude. Active Greater Demons, which are every single demon but Wild Imps, grant 3 stacks instead of 2 now of Demonic Servitude. Demonic Tyrant deals 5% damage, up from 3 for each stack of Demonic Servitude active at the time of his summon. So, every pet that you summon, except for imps, is considered a greater demon. So I'm at 6 stacks here. It's a bit buggy. I'm not really sure why it's at 6 right now. There's 5. It's inner demons summoning things. Oh, the imp gang boss imp spawn. That's fine. Sure. It'll vary a bit, but if I cast dogs here, we will gain 9 stacks. So I'll cast dogs. Watch the value of my tyrant fluctuating here. It goes from 5 to a solid 14. 15 being the other imp that came out from inner demons, right? So the cool thing about that is that the tyrant. So when they buffed Demon Fire damage in the last beta build, it was sort of like a universal buff to both Reign of Tyranny and Wilfred's, or Grand Warlock's design, because unlike Shadowlands, we have the option of taking one or the other. We can't combine Wilfred's, we can't combine Demonic Consumption, we can't combine, just how they are. They share the same node, right? And Demonology's damage profile has shifted a bit in Dragonflight. You're playing either, big pet empowerments with Anilian Training, Felon Steel, and Torah Armaments, Expendables, Demonic Strength, Third Dog, just big pet build over here, obviously. Or you're playing at times a mix of Demon Bolt things with, Fel Covenant, Power Siphon, Sack Souls, or you're playing Portal. But the thing is that your Tyrant, without having both Wilfred's and Decon, or Warlock's Design and Reign of Tyranny, is not the main source of your damage anymore. And having that frequent Tyrant, or that Tyrant every 1 minute with Grand Warlock's Design, means if you're playing the pet build, it's more frequent Tyrants, more frequent pet extensions, more frequent damage extensions or damage amps. If you're playing Sack Souls, it extends, gives more Sack Souls value. If you're playing Portal, it gives just more value during the, similar value during the Portal either way, but just more damage in general, because you're typically playing either a Bolt build with that or a pet build. It's just very synergistic. So while Tyrant's not a main source of damage, being 20%, with both Decon and Wilfred's, it supports the spec a lot more. And if you ask me, yeah, it's cool having your Tyrant do, 20% of your damage, but playing a cooldown roll that does a good bit of damage, but also has support to pets, to Sack Souls, to Portal, to Demon Bolt build, I think feels a lot better. Now, this week's buff, like we said, today's buff, is to Reign of Tyranny, because when we tested this buff previously with just Demon Fire, it seemed like Grand Warlock's design was still a lot better. And we'll take a look at it in a minute here as well. Even with the buff to Reign of Tyranny, it does seem that Grand Warlock's design probably is still a bit stronger, just due to, once again, the pet extensions, the consistent 1 minute Tyrants, the pet amps, the cooldown timing, the synergy with Sack Souls, and with Bolt build, and with all these pet effects over here, right? The other interesting thing is that while Nether Portal is solid, and Reign of Tyranny, it's pretty big, it should theoretically, I would assume, work with Nether Portal pets. But unfortunately, if we pop the portal here, so I'm sitting at 5 stacks. It might fluctuate a bit based on imp spawns from inner demons, but I'm sitting at 5 or 6. If I pop the portal here, we're at 6 stacks, right? I'll cast a Hand of Gul'dan. We're at 6, 5, Those 2 stacks right there from the 2 imps that I summoned with a 2 shard hand and Gul'dan. This Shavara does not contribute to the actual Reign of Tyranny on the Tyrant at all, which could be intended or it could be a bug. I'm assuming that it's probably intended in a way to not make, you know, Reign of Tyranny just utterly busted with Nether Portal and things. But at the same time, I don't think it would be that big of a deal if the demons from Nether Portal, you can thank Malakath for this as well, for also bringing it up, counted as a lesser demon. Because you have RNG in There's Also Volition, you have RNG just in, you know, Shard Refunds too, but you're probably going to summon anywhere from like 7-ish, 8-ish pets from the portal at least on the lower end. And if they count as lesser demons, it's not incredibly impactful. I mean, it adds value to the Tyrant when you have Portal, but it's syncing a 1.5-minute cooldown with a 3-minute cooldown, right? And getting actual value out of it. Trying to cast on the move another Portal can be a complete disaster. Look at Taros testing earlier from today. So I don't think it would be too OP. It might be a bug, and that might be what's intended. But as of right now, even without playing Portal, and we'll look at it in combat here in a minute, whether you're playing Portal or not, or just the pet build or whatever, Reign of Tyranny, even with the buff, it's a step in the right direction, but it just feels a bit undertuned still. Like it could actually just use more raw damage. I'm not looking for a new decon. I'm not looking for, you know, 20% damage to be Tyrant, but they're closer. It's good to see the Demon Bolt or the Demon Fire buff and then the Reign of Tyranny buff. They're locked onto the right things that need tuning, but it just seems that while this is a good step in the right direction, it's not enough. So a fix could be, you know, making it, once again, Portal, give you a lesser demon, I guess, attribution to the Portal whenever you summon one, or to the Tyrant, or just straight up buff it again. Because the one problem with making just, you know, Nether Portal give one lesser demon count towards Reign if you're summoning pets is that if you're not playing Portal but still want good Reign value, say you're playing the pet build here without, like, you know, Nether Portal in this row here, that change is not going to make the pet build with Reign of Tyranny better. So while it's a good step in the right direction, I feel like Reign of Tyranny could still use a bit more tuning. Alrighty, so we are playing the Nether Portal build here with Reign of Tyranny. We're playing Internal Armaments, Expendables, and most of the Portal here. I swapped out Inner Demons. It's just, I'm not going to play it right now. It's fine. This is not necessarily the best build out there. Just it's one of the variations of Nether Portal. We're not playing Bolt build in this build either, which could probably be the best option. Just combining both Demon Bolt and Portal and Pet build, but we'll see where it goes. So the big thing here that I want to look at is just Reign of Tyranny damage in my overall breakdown. Yeah, Pit Lord will be here. Our burst will be pretty good, but the main thing I want to look at is just Reign of Tyranny damage, because we are indeed playing it, and I want to say Wilfred's Tyrant damage is sitting around like 5.5% of our damage breakdown to like 6, depending where you pop it and depending on how RNG is and all that kind of stuff. So opening up briefly with Portal here, there is a bug with pre-casting Shadow Bolts and Demon Bolts. We'll see if we get it. We're going in here very briefly. We did not get it, which is cool. So opening Portal, Grimoire, Vile Fiend, Dogs. We're going to Shadow Bolt, Hand. Go Shadow Bolt, Hand one more time here. Shadow Bolt, Hand. We're going to Trinket, Tyrant, and we're going to go Hand. I might lose the last summon here briefly, but it's fine. Hand, Tyrant. Here comes the actual Pit Lord. And here's the breakdown. So Tyrant sitting about here, doing a decent bit of Demon Fire damage. Pit Lord's juicing up like usual. He does a lot of damage, obviously. But we're playing Reign of Tyranny here, so it's important to keep in mind, like, yeah, he's doing 9%, Pit Lord's doing 18, but Pit Lord won't be back around for another 3 minutes. Tyrant's back around in a minute 10, but Dogs are already really close to it. Next Dog that's going to pass it. Imps are gaining value. Felguard's gaining value. And it just doesn't feel as impactful as it should, and I think a lot of that stems from the fact that we don't get any benefit from casting, you know, Nether Portal with Decon, which hopefully is fixed at some point. Even if it is, that only benefits the Nether Portal build. It doesn't benefit, you know, the pet build if you're playing non-Nether Portal, whatever, what have you. Even pulling up the breakdown again here, we're about 40-ish seconds off our next Tyrant. We can cast Dogs here. Briefly as a hand, the Tyrant's down to 5.5% already, and we're half a minute off. Man, it's just still dropping 5.8, 5.6. Pit Lord's sitting at about 10%. It's actually a pretty good one for a non-lusted PI pull. It crit twice. But we'll wait for the Tyrant to come back up. We're going to have it again in about 18 seconds. I'm going to wait on the Vile Fiend here. We'll hold these Dogs, cast one more hand. Do this. 2 more Shadow Bolts here. We'll just go 1 Shadow Bolt, it's fine. Not gonna make a big difference here either way. Summon the Vile Fiend out, cast the Dogs if I don't lag too much, and just cast a handful of Panda Gul'dans here, empower the Tyrant. We can go Trinket, summon the Tyrant out, Demonic Strength, and let's see where it goes. We're sitting at 4.5%. Watch it climb to 5, 5.3, Once again, the Pit Lord's back up in about a minute or so here as well. 5.3, 6.4, 6.9. And there is a difference here in the overall raw damage contribution compared to what Tyrant or what like Wilfred's will do. But I don't think it's big enough. We're sitting at 7.9 and it's falling off again here. I don't think the difference in damage here being 7.9, 8% or so, compared to just straight up playing, you know, Wilfred's or Grand Warlock's design, whatever you want to call it, brings to the other pets. Just getting an extra Tyrant every 3 minutes is actually really big. It might make some cities a bit awkward with Portal and things, but getting an extra Tyrant once every, 3 minutes is big, because that Tyrant literally buffs every single thing you see here outside of Hand the Gul'dan. And if you're not playing Sack Souls, it doesn't buff Demon Bolt or Shadow Bolt, but it buffs almost every single thing. It buffs, like, buff. It buffs almost everything because it extends pets, gives pets more damage. It's just a really strong ability to have around, and getting one extra one every 3 minutes is pretty big. And it's putting aside that having a good, strong, just 1 minute like niche damage profile is really good to have in progression. Not a lot of classes bring it to the table. So I'm a bit curious to see where it all goes. We'll Tyrant one more time here. We have dogs coming up now in Portal, and we'll look at the damage breakdown. But overall, I'm just not incredibly impressed with Reign of Tyranny. The Portal, we'll pop that, pop our Vile Fiend. We have Dog proc here, which is sick. We can Soul Burn for a stack there and get a pet out. We can Hand the Gul'dan, Shadow Bolt, Hand the Gul'dan. That's a good refund right there. We can go Tyrant for double hand here. I might miss one summon. We got it. Let's see. Big Pit Lord time. He's juiced up. So we're sitting at about 6% here. But once again, this is a huge Nether Portal empowerment. That was almost a perfect setup, and there's no benefit to Reign of Tyranny from Nether Portal. Tyrant's doing 6.6, 7%. Pit Lords, the Pit Lord's above it. We've summoned 1 or 2 Pit Lords. We've summoned 3 Tyrants so far. And listen, I'm down for big Pit Lord damage, but the Tyrant's already gone. And he's doing 6.6% of our damage. So taking everything into account, it's a step in the right direction for Reign of Tyranny and all the buffs and everything, but I think Reign needs more buffs if they want to separate, Grand Warlock's design from Reign of Tyranny. If you're trying to build 2 different kind of play styles, one being larger like Tyrant empowerments, one being just more consistent Tyrants with lesser raw power, but more consistent damage amps and a more streamlined damage profile. One's a bit more spiky, with Tyrants being every minute and a half, but larger Tyrants and Portal at 3. And one's a bit more consistent with just more frequent Tyrants. Spiky here and there, but not as spiky as a minute and a half with Reign of Tyranny and everything else. That's where it needs to go, I think, tuning-wise. I don't think Reign of Tyranny is at that point yet. Now, the destruction buffs are when things get pretty interesting. We talked about how bad Destra was in a video a couple days ago, and these buffs are some of the largest buffs I've ever seen a class get. There's been some big ones over the course of just one tuning pass. So Immolate's actual application damage has been increased by, I don't know, like 20%. The dot's been increased by 30%. Incinerate's been increased by, I think, 30%. Cataclysm was increased by, I think, 30. Chaos Bolt also increased by a pretty good amount, 30% roughly, I think. Conflict Rate was increased by like 25 maybe. Rain of Fire also buffed by, I think, a quarter. I have the numbers here actually. Immolate direct damage, application damage increased by 35%. The dot damage being 35, conflict rate damage increased by 25, incinerate damage increased by 35, Rain of Fire damage increased by 35, Chaos Bolt increased by a whopping 30%, and Cataclysm damage increased by 20. Now, this is not a full aura buff to Destro, because an aura buff would have also impacted other things like, I mean, just Channel Demon Fire, Soul Fire, Shadow Burn. But honestly, like, this is a really big buff. This is substantial, and it impacts, like, most of our toolkit. I mean, like, what is missing from this toolkit? Immolate, Conflict Rate, Incinerate, Chaos Bolt, Cataclysm, Rain of Fire. Like, what is missing? Like, I mean, Infernal damage, maybe? Something along those lines, but that's not really needed. They buffed nearly all of Destruction's baseline toolkit because it was absolutely gutted in alpha to a point where it wasn't even playable. Things look a lot better now. I've sort of settled on a build like this in single target, albeit it could be different. We'll look at it in combat here in a second as well. I've played with Soulfire. I'm not a huge fan of it. It probably needs more. Maybe making it castable on the move would be a step in the right direction. I think the best thing to do for Soulfire would be to return the instant cast Incinerate clause to it, which it used to have way back in the day before they added Immolate to it for some reason, and the Kickstart Your Damage meme began. Both of those would be a step in the right direction. It is now indeed effective by Backdraft. It does work with Havoc and things, but It just seems sort of subpar. And without Soulfire getting a direct buff, both it and CDF to a certain extent, I'm curious to see if there's a build that just doesn't even play CDF based around, you know, Incinerate, Immolate, Incinerate, Conflagrate damage, and just big Chaos Bolt buffs. The Destro got big buffs. I'm happy with it overall. We played it in testing today on Kurog Grim Totem. It looked pretty solid, but once again, Kurog is a fight that's literally just built. It's like the perfect Destro lock fight. It looks really, really solid, and that video should be up in a couple days. With that being said, though, let's take a look at Destro in combat in a single target setting and a different build in a bit of a stacked AoE kind of setting. All right, so Destro in single target. Once again, we're playing this build here. We are playing Chaos Incarnate, and we're playing Power Underwhelming. I'm not a huge fan of it. I think it's probably better for just consistency over Infernal Brand with being even a 2-minute cooldown. We're playing Crashing Chaos with Wilfrid's over Reign of Chaos and Infernal Brand. Crashing Chaos just is really solid. Like, it might not end up being the best when it comes to numerical tuning. We'll see where it goes, but it feels really good casting 7 Chaos Bolts in a row with Crashing Chaos when you're playing Madness. If you give a Lust or a PI to a Destro lock with this ability, it's just insane. So with that being said, let's jump into it. Let me pop a flask here briefly. Chaos Bolts weren't hitting exceptionally hard before. I cast a Chaos Bolt earlier for 80k, the first one I cast, and then another one backed by Madness for over 100k. Destro feels pretty solid. It might not be the best option in single target, but it's much closer in single target than it was before. So we'll open on a precast Incinerate into an Immolate here, drop the Infernal, Trinket, Conflagrate will CDF, and then just start launching the Chaos Bolts. So here comes Crashing Chaos synergy, right? 60k, 76k, 87k, 90k, 100k, 91k, we're getting close. Just launching Chaos Bolts back to back to back. Even with like poor refunds like that, it's just like 6-7 Chaos Bolts back to back to back. I'm not totally sold on Channel Demon Fire, but I will say, like, Roaring Blaze does feel pretty solid with this build overall. But the thing with this build, it's almost just constant Chaos Bolts. You're building towards Madness with that Chaos Bolt filler spell, Chaos Bolt dump window. Trying to cast Channel Demon Fire whenever you can, being buffed by Roaring Blaze here, will Conflagrate for that. And it's basically it. That's the gist of it. There's no Soulfire here. There's no, like, other weird spells you're casting in between. You just dump Chaos Bolts. You get a refund. You can Conflagrate again. Hopefully get a shard back and go again. Ember is giving 0.4 shards, like 0.4 to like 0.5 if it crits. With an Incinerate cast, feels utterly insane. This build feels very fluent in single target and cleave. Destro's toolkit and talent build just feels really good in almost any setting you put it into. Launching multiple bolts back to back feels good. And we're roughly a minute off of our Infernal. We're sitting at currently 40% Chaos Bolt damage, roughly. Incinerate being about 18, being buffed by Roaring Blaze as well. We're going to Conflagrate here into a CDF being about 9.5%. CDF was more raw damage-wise previously, partially due to the buffs to Conflagrate and basically everything else, like Chaos Bolt and Incinerate. It's dropped off a little bit. I'm not sure how I feel about it. Immolate being about 10. It's just a normal Destro breakdown, but the build just feels strong. It just feels good. And having that Madness profile, if you need it in like 2-target Havoc-based cleave settings, is just even stronger. We've got Infernal coming up here in about 15. We'll take a look at that in 1 sec. We're going to refresh this Immolate right here. Cast an Incinerate. We'll Conflagrate. Actually, we'll cast the Bolt and Conflagrate. It's fine. Why not? I want to dump the CDF before I Infernal here if possible. We're a little off our Trinket here too, so we can just Conflagrate, do this. Also, Raging Demon Fire extensions and Immolate feel really good as well. You barely have to refresh it at all. Drop the rock, pop our Trinket, and we begin just the Machine Gun Chaos Bolt spam. Chaos Bolt, 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 103k, 104k, Bolt, 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 Conflagrate, just waiting on the CDF for Madness, Bolt. All right, dropping off now, sort of, and yeah, just the damage window you bring with Crashing Chaos and Wilfrid's or Grand Warlock's design just feels really good. You're a machine gun of bolts every 2 minutes. Throw a Luster or PI in there, and you're just nearly untouchable. My biggest bolt being for 104k. Feels good. Not too bad. Solid Madness breakdown. If you're looking at playing like some Destro AoE after the change and things, they have indeed buffed Rain of Fire. They did indeed also buff Chaos Bolt, Incinerate, Immolate, Conflagrate damage. The one thing in this build, just like the last one they hadn't really buffed, is Channel Demon Fire. Now, this is more of a middle ground kind of build. You're playing Cataclysm, CDF, Raging Demon Fire, Backdraft, no Roaring Blaze, no Explosive Potential, and I'm not really sold on this build in Mythic Plus. It's sort of like a universal kind of build. I'd like to have Roaring Blaze Maybe CDR on explosive potential. Flashpoint, eradication, ash remains, no embers. It does get you 2-piece, 4-piece. It gets you madness, it gets you infernal, crashing chaos, and Wilfrids. Now, the Destro buffs are nice. I ran a couple Halls of Valor keys earlier, which is available for this weekend on beta, testing-wise. I don't think Halls of Valor is the best dungeon to test like Destro in. It probably isn't the best spec for it. I assume like Demo's probably a little better, something that's more single target / AoE based. This build feels fine, but the interesting thing is that we're playing Cry Havoc over Pandemonium, which fuels the Chaos Bolt spam build in AoE, and not necessarily Rain of Fire spam. Now, Rain of Fire spam is not bad. If I was going to do that, I'd shift from Cataclysm to Inferno. Probably just keep a similar build here. Wouldn't play CDF. Probably go for like Third Conflagrate or Roaring Blaze, CDR here, and maybe a point somewhere else. But this build was relatively exciting when it came to, I guess, AoE cleave. So briefly, we'll look at it. We're gonna open on a Cataclysm, put our Infernal down. I'll rain once here because we're close to capping on shards at times if we get good refunds with our Infernal here. Havoc, Conflagrate, and just begin the Bolt Dump. We have Crashing Chaos again, which is pretty insane. We're bursting to 100k right now, 107k. We get a proc from that. There's our Infernal, 110k, 120k, probably a little higher. Havoc is falling here, so we can start spamming Rain of Fires in AoE a bit. Rain of Fire, CDF. The build feels pretty solid. You're constantly chaining like 2-piece, 4-piece procs in your opener because you've just got so much value from Crashing Chaos. It allows you to cast Rain of Fire so quickly, Chaos Bolts quickly, Havoc's back around again. We can go back into a Havoc. Starting up in Chaos Bolts again, and in a second here, when we come out of this Havoc window, we'll look at Cry Havoc damage. Cry Havoc's a good portion of our damage overall. It's surprising when it comes to cleave. We're sitting at, what are we sitting at here? It's sitting at 7.8%. It's out 400k damage in a 4-target stack cleave scenario. So while these numbers might not be incredibly impressive compared to other classes that are doing a lot of damage here and things, we won't maintain permanent flashpoint in settings like this either. This is a substantial step up in damage compared to where Destro was 2 days ago in the video I recorded. We couldn't maintain 60k in AoE. It was like 55k, 50k. Now we're maintaining 80k in a decent area, or in a decent manner. So the buffs to Destro, solid overall. I don't think it's like our best spec necessarily in single target, but it is a very strong powerhouse with Havoc, with Rolling Havoc, with Flashpoint. And in the right scenario, with the right toolkit, Destro can be exceptionally strong. We'll see where tuning goes over the next few days, the next few weeks. Blizzard will be tuning all the way up to Dragonflight launch and the raid coming out. The video on like just Destro, Demo, AF single target builds will be coming out this week at some point, and then we can make better comparisons. We need a little bit of time to lock in on what the actual best build probably is. But either way, Destro gained a substantial amount of ground today on Demo and Affliction. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully the video answered all the questions you might have had on the Demo and Destro buffs from today. So over the next couple of days, obviously this video is going up. And then I would assume we have probably in the next 24 hours a pre-patch guide in either Demonology or Affliction, and whichever one doesn't come out the day after, we'll have that up too. All 3 of those videos should be up before pre-patch hits. I also wouldn't mind getting the Kurog Grim Totem testing up, playing Destro, a little bit of Demo too, because that was a really fun boss. Destro sliced through that boss pretty well, and Demo wasn't even that bad either, with Nether Portal and things, but we'll see where it goes. So let me know what you guys think of these builds down below in the comment section. If I missed anything, feel free to put it down there. I'll be sure to get back to you guys. Any week auras, profiles, add-ons on the video are all for free on my Twitch. If you want to swing by, grab them. !WA in chat or my Discord, link down below. They are all indeed available to you guys for free anytime. Before I end the video, I also want to give one huge shout out to my patrons. Thank you guys a million times for all support on Patreon. Again, really, truly appreciate it. If you'd like to support on Patreon or look into it, there's a link up here as well as down in the video description below. With all that being said, thanks for watching, guys. Be sure to smash the like and sub buttons because it helps out a ton. And I will catch you all again soon on stream. Buff Destro. Peace.